Yes, hello, good morning. This is Daniel Fitzgerald. I'm uploading a very short video to YouTube again. This, of course, is for the Russian Federation mission in New York City, along with the Russian embassy here, and I will direct them to the videos when I call the embassy. Perhaps they're already scanning for my videos on YouTube. Hopefully they are. But again, this is another statement for the United Nations in New York City and member states of the Permanent Security Council, excluding the United States, Great Britain, and France. Okay, so basically, this statement is for the Russian Federation, permanent member of the Security Council in New York City, as well as the Chinese ambassador, saying to the Permanent Security Council. This is from Daniel and Jennifer Fitzgerald in Ottawa to both parties. I'm doing this video to present to you another operation against my wife and I, this time by the City of Ottawa's rental subsidy program at 100 Constellation here in Ottawa. I'd like to indicate that my wife and I have had a rental supplement here where we live now by this same government ministry for the last 2 or 3 years. We're entitled to a reduction on the amount of rent we pay, which ranges between $500 and roughly $700 Canadian, which is paid for. It's a subsidy because of the high rents that we pay. And we've had this subsidy for the past 2 years from the same organization without issue. This year, since I started indicating to the Russian Federation embassy here in a message for the mission in New York that next month I'm going out with my trailer and my scooter with signs indicating the exact nature of all the criminal acts committed by the governments of Canada under Liberal conservative leadership and organized criminal groups within their civilian employed ministries in various departments. This one group acting against us with the same group of organized criminals and Nazi colonials in law enforcement, and also their recruits on the streets. So let's begin. I want to keep this short and get the upload up as fast as I can. About within the last week of, I think it was August, on or about, somewhere in there, my wife, well, first of all, my wife had until July 30th, had until August 30th, 2024, to send in a renewal application for funding so that we could get a deduction on paying our rent. Okay, my wife had till August 30th. My wife faxed the application into the City of Ottawa renewal department back in June, July. Okay, she sent a new application to them with information on our earnings and her disability and so on. Well, we don't have any earnings anyway. And then she sent it in, she faxed in, they got it. Then after July 30th, in August, my wife receives a letter from this department telling her that she's expired the time frame to file an application to renew the deduction on our rent. Okay. They stated in their letter that she had until July 30th and that a reminder was sent to her. But she'd already sent in the application by fax and by letterhead a month or two before, which they received because the fax was confirmed. So that one there kind of upset us. We knew at that stage that somebody was trying to pull something nasty against my wife and I. And again, this follows all of the provocations by government agencies in the past. They pull the same style of attack. The idea is they want to get us upset and perhaps get a criminal response. Okay, this is what they're up to, and this was the case here. Now, that error upset us, but my wife did contact them. She was not offensive or anything in the first act by them to scare her like this, and she responded in a very respectful way, and then they contacted her and told her, no, everything's fine. Okay, so then we got a letter in the mail just last week of the renewal and the amount we're getting. Okay, in the renewal document, they stated that there was only one person living here and that it was a 1-bedroom. And you see, what they do is, in order to calculate your funding for your rent, in order to calculate how much of a subsidy they're going to give you, what they do is they calculate based on the cost of a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. And that's the basis of how they decide how much of a subsidy they're going to give you. So here's the point. For the last 2 years, this subsidy department here in Ottawa, working for the government, has known that my wife and I reside in a 2-bedroom unit and that there's 2 of us. They know this. They know from the past applications. So this time around, they decide that they are going to issue us a subsidy based on my wife living by herself in a 1-bedroom. You see? And so as a result of this, they lowered our subsidy from somewhere around $670 to $570. That's not the exact number, but it's very close, meaning that we have to pay an extra $94 directly to the landlord for our rent, okay, which takes away from our basic needs, which is food, okay. Then they state, we started emailing, complaining to them about this. They state that that we're entitled from my wife and I are entitled from Ontario Disability a maximum of $915 for shelter, and that our disability was only giving us $881, and that they were supposed to give us the maximum $915, but that's not true, because the ministry knew that we had not had a rent increase where we're living here by the landlord now for almost about 3 years. So why would they increase us to the maximum shelter allowance when the landlord, as our worker knows, never increased the cost of our rent, which explains why the disability ministry never increased our shelter allowance, okay? But their excuse was for us to go to the ministry and request a maximum on the shelter allowance, which is $915. We were getting $881, okay? So they're telling us that they're not giving you the maximum. Well, here's the problem. Even with the maximum, we can only cover $34 of the $94 that they've deducted from the subsidy, okay? So what I'm saying here is that this was all done with intent. This was a pot shot by, again, the government of Ontario and the police. This was another attempt to get a criminal provocation from my wife and I. Now, at one point, my wife was really upset, so she said, they're a bunch of dirtbags for doing these kinds of things. That is not offensive language, okay? They tried to accuse us of, they actually used the term offensive conduct in our emails. There was no offensive conduct in our emails. My position on offensive conduct, or offensive language conduct in emails, is if you use foul language, use the F word, or you call someone a bitch or something like that. Now that is offensive, okay? We did not use any foul language, okay, the F word, in anger in any of our emails. So, but they're trying to make it look like we committed offensive conduct. They even said, oh, we read all your emails, there's offensive conduct. Okay, what offensive conduct? And then they had the nerve to say to my wife and I, oh, and we sent you copies of your emails so you can read your offensive conduct. So I'm going to send copies of the emails to the Russian Federation Embassy here. I'll send them to you. I will contact your embassy and let you know that I sent all of my wife and I's emails that we sent this Canadian Ontario government institution, the subsidy department for the government for rent, and we'll let the Russian government judge if what we said was absolutely offensive conduct, because it was not. Okay? So I just wanted to do this video and upload it. My wife is actually the one that got angry and said that they were dirty. Okay, I never made those statements. I also emailed them. My wife emailed them from my Gmail account because her Hotmail account's hacked. And then we both took turns emailing them. That's why they got a number of emails. But nothing I said to them, there was no offensive conduct in anything that I stated. Okay, My wife simply said, well, it's a bunch of dirtbags that would do something like this to us. And my wife's right. That's not offensive conduct. Okay, they are dirtbags. Okay, they did this with intent. You think that, and I'll say to the Russian Federation and the UN through this video that, look, comrades, okay, I have all the evidence of this kind of conduct being committed against my wife and I, provocative conduct. That's what they do. They attack you, right? And then what they do is, here's what they do. They turn around and they turn on their tape recording machines. They won't let you talk to reception because it's attempted entrapment. They want you to leave recorded messages, criminally threatening them with some kind of personal harm so that they can nab you. Okay, that's what they do. And not only did they do that, but we had requested telephonic communications with these people at the subsidy department, okay, not emails. So when they pulled all this, then they turn around and say to us, email us. They knew we were upset. They knew that they already knew that based on what they had done with intent, that they could expect some kind of ignorant response. That's what they wanted, because that was the whole idea. So I'm just letting you know. I will say to the Russian government, ever since I told, the Canadian government on Parliament Hill, the opposition party, Polyev, as well as Trudeau, by telephonically, that I was going out next month with my trailer and all my signs to disintegrate the reputations of the current status quo in Parliament Hill, which you in the Russian Federation, you know what I'm talking about. You know NATO, right? You know what's going on. And I noted that, I indicated this to Poilievre's office and Trudeau's about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, that I was planning to go out in the streets of Ottawa with my trailer and all my signs to tell the Canadian people the true nature of their elected officials on Parliament Hill, which includes these parties provincially. Extremely corrupt, extremely dangerous, and they have a huge organized criminal collective. I mean, it's huge, working for them in all their ministries as a one-unit Nazi mafia gang collective with Nazi policies, okay? As far as offensive, like they did say they understood why we were upset. Okay, my wife did offer them some kind of repentance apology for whatever it is they think that she said. But I told them, I countered my wife because I called them and I told them no way. There's no offensive language or conduct in the emails. I told them, you did this with intent. And whoever got you to pull this stunt to get a provocative response and then requesting us to send emails, that's how they do it, my Russian colleagues. They'll do something to make you angry. They'll commit a false flag against you. In the end, they acknowledge their error. Okay, in the end, they do, and then it's corrected. But the whole idea of the event to begin with is to have my wife and I send them some form of provocative criminal email threatening them personally or something like that. Neither of us are of that actual character. So this is, again, the government of Ontario trying to create a criminal provocation for my wife and I. There is none. There's no grounds in any of our communications to them of any criminal conduct. There just isn't any. It has to be criminal. Okay? If you call a female or a male in a department of Ontario government civil services or a ministry, and you say, you're a rotten effing dirtbag, I hate you, something like that, then yeah, sure, that's offensive and it's kind of threatening, right? Kinda, right? Although the person didn't make a direct threat that they're going to come down and beat you over the head with a club or anything like that. It's a threatening tone, but again, there is no proof of an actual criminal threat to do physical harm to that person. So, this is very well distinguished in the laws of our country, but the police and the government are violating the clarity of these laws in order to criminally charge people for just simply saying something ignorant. This is where they're going. And it is it is this collective of gangs on the streets and in these ministries of the provincial and federal governments of Canada, they're the ones pushing for C-63, okay? And the purpose of that is they want to nab all of the victims they've committed crimes against, who are trying to embarrass them publicly before international community member states in Canada as well as phone calls to the UN. So that's what they're doing. My wife did get a little upset. I'm surprised she used the term dirtbag. That kind of surprised me. My emails to them, I don't use the term dirtbag. I never said any of those kinds of things to them. My responses are very well measured, but especially me, because it's me that they're after. It's really me. So, but my emails and my wife emails are very distinguishable, because in this case, my punctuation and grammar and capitalization and so on is terrible, and it's very noticeable. So they won't be able to say that I offended them, that it was me emailing them, because my wife's emails are punctually and grammatically correct, okay, with the appropriate punctuation. She does that with all her emails. Mine, there isn't any, and that's how you can tell the difference. So they won't be able to blame me. You know. Did my wife have a right to say you're dirtbags? Sure she did. Because the reason for the term dirtbags, she could have said something a lot worse. But the reason for the term dirtbags is really simple. They are dirtbags, and they did this with intent. And I think that when I contact the Russian embassy here for the UN, I will explain to them what happened. And I know that the Russian government is going to agree that these people did this with intent, and this is this criminal organization within Ontario government ministries. We have seen a lot of them, Russia. I'm not kidding. We have seen workers trying to provocate against us for being angry. We never threatened anyone criminally to hurt anyone. Generally speaking, if I want to call somebody, an effing bitch, for example, I'll do it in my house, right? I won't do it on the phone. I will never do that, because that kind of conduct is not acceptable. If someone called my wife and called her an effing bitch, and maybe there's some people who feel they would love to do that, but perhaps they don't for the same reasons that we don't, okay? Canada's got to focus on discontinuing this collective of gangsters and Nazi colonials in the civil services of their ministries and provincial, federal governments and local city governments. They have to stop doing these things. Okay? Note, Russian Federation, that and your colleagues, the BRICS states, including China, note that I very rarely write emails. It is a rarity. Okay? Why? Because I'm always being threatened to be arrested. Every time I use a pen, or every time, and pen referring to long emails to people, even people that I've made allegations against, government officials and so on, and comments on YouTube, always ends up in the hacker in our phone wanting me arrested. This has always been the case. So because of this, I refrain from writing emails. I only write very few. Now, I want to inform the UN Russian government that I did contact the Supreme Court of Canada. I did request an avenue of communication to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to indicate to him in statements that basically the evidence we have proves that the Liberals and Conservative parties on Parliament Hill are in criminal disrepute, okay, along with their ministries, all right? So that's a big statement, and I wanted to communicate these truths to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, because he's very powerful. And my wife and I, we're always willing to seek out a powerful ally, in our case against Parliament Hill, as well as the Quebec provincial legislature and the Ontario legislature, that are both extremely dangerous, extremely mafia and Nazified, extremely corrupt. Don't forget, they use their jails to murder people, okay, here exclusively. And these politicians are in on it, okay, as, the Russian Federation acknowledges from the material I gave you 4 years ago. So I just wanted to indicate this to you. I did make a couple of calls to this subsidy office. First of all, in my recorded message to them, because the reception won't answer the phone, they want to nab me, you see, and I know that. But I made it very clear to them, very sternly, that first of all, why in their directory of all the names of the people working at this subsidy office on Constellation here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, why do none of their names match the names of the two people who are communicating with us? One is named Haley Adams. The other one's name now, her supervisor's name is Miss Critch. Okay, but yet these two last names do not appear in their staff registry, in their voicemail. Check for yourself. Russia, call them, and just hit 1, and then the voice recording will ask you to press 2 to go into the employee registry, and which lists by voice all the names of all the employees in that department. You will find that this Miss Critch and this Miss Adams does not exist. So in my recorded message to them in the beginning, I asked them in the recorded message, why is this Miss Critch and this Miss Adams using alias names in their communications to my wife and I? You see, this is it. Why? Well, the reason why is because so that the people who pulled this stunt, who are guilty, they're hiding behind these alias names in communications with my wife and I, so that they can't get caught, so that we can't report who they are. Like if I were to call an institution here, if it even existed, to report this and say, oh, well, the names of the civil servants at the Ontario government subsidy office, their last names are Critch, both appear to be women, and the other one's last name is Adams, right? And they decide to investigate, okay, this institution. These institutions, by the way, don't exist here anymore. The governments have taken them away, okay? But such an institution would come back to me and say, we've contacted them to question them on your allegations regarding what they did, and they're stating there's no such person as Critch or Adams. My wife and I, comrades, have seen this many times in the past. There was a policeman named Leboeuf. There was a policeman named Leboeuf in Lacolle, Quebec, a provincial policeman who was involved in damaging our boat, involved in this activity against my wife and I that was criminal. What this person was doing. Now, later on, when I called and I said the name of one of the officers who committed these criminal acts against me and my wife, his name is Leboeuf, okay? They turned around and told me on the phone there's no such policeman named Leboeuf. And then here's what happened. A few weeks later, my wife and I ran into this officer Leboeuf, and his name tag on his police uniform said Leboeuf. So what's happened here is these organized criminal groups, and I've mentioned this before, I didn't really touch on it in the information I gave the Russian Federation here 4 years ago. I didn't, but I'm going to do it now. What I have determined through this criminal Nazi criminal group in the provincial government's ministries as civil servants along with the feds is that they use alias names so that they can commit illegal acts against victims, and then when the victims give their names to an appropriate institution, okay, to notify them of the names of the people who did it, what they do is their departments protect them by saying no such name is employed in this department. So in other words, they're covering for their illegal activities against my wife and I, okay? Now this Critch and Adams, these are alias names. These do not exist on their voicemail registry of their employees at this institution. Okay, this is what the government does. So this huge criminal collective in the civil services of Canadian federal and provincial ministries, they are using alias names when they attack innocent people that they're targeted, and they're getting away with it. You know, if you listen to the list of employees at this subsidy office on Constellation, you will note that there's about 10 names indicated, okay? And none of them are Miss Critch or Haley Adams. So these two have complete cover, okay, and are hiding under alias names okay, in their attack against my wife and I, which was with intent. Had the case been when they sent my wife a letter telling her that she wasn't getting the subsidy because she didn't file her application before July 30th, okay, and that was the expiration date. When they sent that, okay, and my wife responded cordially and requested them to know that she did send the application and reminded them that the application date was August 30th. She had till August 30th. And they, of course, turned around and said, yes, okay, we did get it, and blah, 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 right? Now, we let that one go. Then they turn around, and, as I said earlier in my video, they turned around and sent us our renewal, this document, and they lessened our subsidy by almost $100. They lessened it by $94, which means we would have had to pay out of pocket. What?
They said we were one person.
Yeah, and they said that it was one person living in a one bedroom. It said it right on their document. So these are provocations, okay? They're provocations. We've seen these by the Ontario, Quebec Ministry of Social Services in the past. The exact same matching psychology, the same plots, the same acts, okay? Because in those cases as well, the people who tried to pull them were simply trying to get a criminal response out of us. If it failed, then they would take corrective measures to stop what they've done and reverse it, you see. This is it. Anyways, I gotta go. My wife has to have a nap, so I'll post this video and I'll right now. Thank you. And this message is for the Russian Federation here in the UN. Thank you. Спасибо.